The GovX Show is supported by Forrester, helping government organisations perform at their best. Visit forrester.com to learn more.
Hi, welcome to another episode of the GovX Show. I'm Tim Coulthard, Community Director here at GovX Digital, and today my guest is Luke Morton, who's Chief Technology Officer for our friends at Maytech. He's worked on multiple transformation projects with local authorities and central government agencies in the UK, and we're going to be talking today around accelerating delivery. What does it really mean? How can we get better at it? And what are the benefits? It's one of those phrases that gets used a lot, but we're going to try and unpack what its real meaning is and how you and your organization can benefit from a more accelerated approach. I'll be along at the end to share some information around the accelerating delivery panel discussion that's happening at GovX Digital that Luke's going to be taking part in. But in the meantime, here we go. Here's Luke. So Luke, welcome to the GovX Show. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. We're excited to be working with Maytech again because we know you guys are doing some great work with the public sector and really interested in exploring some of what you're seeing and hearing in terms of the work you're doing with different organisations around the UK, because you know you're in that position of hearing on the front line what's going on. So we're going to have an interesting conversation today, partly around the idea of sort of accelerated delivery, because that's one of the event sessions that you're going to be taking part in soon enough. But before we get into that, tell us a bit about you and your role and what you're doing with Maytech and your background.
Cool. Yeah, no, excellent. Yeah, so thanks again for having me. Really excited to be part of GovX. So I'm a software engineer by background. In fact, actually, I was lucky enough to have a computer in my bedroom. So from like I was building HTML and CSS from back in school days and learning the ropes back then. And so kind of I've always been a digital kind of native in that sense. Yeah. And so through my career, I've kind of worked for ISPs, building kind of digital services in and around that space, later content platforms, e-commerce, and working in the startup world. In terms of my journey with Maytech, I actually joined 7 years ago now, just over. Back then when I joined, we were 6 people. We were all software engineers. I joined as a software engineer. Even Rory, our CEO, was still coding at that time. So, it was real all kind of startup days, all hands on deck, clean the toilets if you need, nothing beyond kind of the scope of our role. And so, 7 years later, we've got 4 offices around the UK and growing, 200 plus staff. That growth I've played many different roles in the business through that, from kind of leading from a technical perspective to leading full delivery, leading whole accounts and clients and building those relationships. And now focusing my role more around kind of how we are helping the public sector and making sure our mission is being delivered on, really. And so just to give a bit of detail on what that means, I mean, it's all about shaping our propositions and our capabilities and evolving those. Like I say, we came from a software engineering background and delivery focus. We've kind of broadened that out these days to include, legacy modernization, user-centered design, and bringing in various skill sets around data science and data, and really building that out. And that's what really excites me, right? Just bringing together new skills and kind of adapting what we do. And kind of we've really managed to build a purpose at Maytech around supporting the public sector to effectively use technology to better society. And so all of our propositions and capabilities are built around that purpose and mission. So I get to play in that space all day long and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've been on your career journey is a bit like the journey that, let's say, digital teams themselves have been on, which is going from being very technical, quite sort of, focused upon the code and that sort of stuff, through to it being much more about an enabler, working with people, working with teams, helping to drive that change, not just in terms of, the noughts and ones behind the scenes, but the actual sort of, embedding it in a organizational culture and all that kind of exciting stuff. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me a bit. We've been talking a while about acceleration. It's a word that people drop relentlessly. Yeah, we're accelerating, we're transforming. and it sounds good, but I'm curious for you and your colleagues, when we're talking about accelerating delivery and so on, what does that mean to you, and what should another organization in the public sector think about it when they're thinking about it as well?
Well, I'd actually take it back to some of the early days of Made Tech, just to set the scene a little bit, and not to get too kind of emotional about it, but I really love kind of where we started and where we came from. And you know, back then actually we were focused on startups. We weren't working with the public sector 7 years ago. We were helping startups launch their first product into the market, and that was all about how do we quickly get something out into the market, how do we test our assumptions early, minimize waste in that delivery process, deliver something into the hands of real users as quickly as possible, and learn from that. And so in that way, you know, startups they've got short runways in the early days. They've not got the luxury of time, and so that necessitates an accelerated delivery. And so that's kind of in the DNA of Made Tech, myself and my background as well. And so it's kind of it's all part of the methodology in a sense. And so, you know, four or so years ago, we started working with GDS and with Hackney Council and Ministry of Justice, and we found the same kind of needs around needing to deliver value and supporting newly formed digital teams to do the same. And you know, we eventually pivoted our whole business model and purpose, like I said, around the public sector, and we're much more purpose driven these days, and everyone joins Made Tech to be part of that now. And so, like, coming to just accelerated delivery, like, why is that? I mean, I'd reframe it a little. Why is it necessary in the public sector?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I think there's so much waste in delivery, and needing to drive towards value quicker, and I can see frustrations around the inability to be able to deliver within the constraints of legacy and not having the right skills in organizations. And I think accelerated delivery really is about how do we learn faster, how do we deliver in smaller increments to build knowledge, to build confidence, and confidence a key one. And it's really important that we're kind of getting out of this fearful mindset, and we're okay to fail and deliver and learn from that. And I think, you know, like I actually said this in my 15-minute video that you asked me to record, that, like, in some ways we're helping the public sector act more like a tech startup, right? I don't think you can get hundreds-year-old organizations to be tech startups. It's not that, but there is so much to learn from, you know, these organizations who have to learn and adapt. And I think our citizens and taxpayers deserve leaner delivery at lower costs, and focus more on user value for users and better outcomes for citizens. That's what accelerated delivery is about for me, anyway.
That's brilliant. It's really good to hear you sort of, you know, sketch that out, because I think it demystifies what it's really about, and also the why. You know, it says, oh, well, what are we going faster for the sake of it? No, we're doing it to drive value. So it's great to hear that that's what's sort of kind of behind it. So let's take a fictional, you know, local authority, and they're saying, yeah, we want some of this acceleration. We want to behave in this way. We want to learn the best sort of behaviors and cultural pieces from startup world, let's say. So for you, where can they make progress, whether that's the sort of first steps or the quick wins before the longer term, you know, cultural piece follows along?
Yeah, no, I think absolutely, and it does come back to a bit of a cultural piece, and actually enabling opportunities to take small steps to deliver small pieces. You know, like, I often see people beginning a digital journey or a journey to transform the way that technology has been delivered in an organization, and it will start with you know, big upfront kind of platforms or org design and things like this. But really, you just need to be able to provide a safe environment for a set of bringing together a multidisciplinary team, giving them just a goal that they can deliver in 6 weeks, whether that's, COVID's provided some excellent opportunities around this. Like we've worked with some local authorities to deliver just simple forms for businesses to apply for loans. And actually those things were delivered in 2-3 weeks of worth of development. And so, there are very simple kind of digital services that you could potentially first tackle. And all you need to do is get out of the way of a team. You need to get that team formed and make sure they've got enough skills to go all the way through to live without needing to rely on another team. Just give them that safety, even if they're not kind of releasing any software on existing infrastructure, and they just use GovUK Pass and just experiment, and allow them to focus on.
Sorry about that.
Hello, Alexa.
Conversation. Disruptive technology.
Absolutely, but you get out of the way of the teams. Enable a team to kind of build some confidence. You don't have to get the whole organization doing it. Just start small, build confidence, showcase, build awareness of what you're doing. There's lots more broader structural things that need to get put in place over time, but getting that early wins and early confidence is key, I think.
Yeah, so that's a good place to start. And I'm interested, what's going on in the world right now, I guess, is always the interesting question, particularly in the public sector. The range of organizations you're working with, are there certain kinds of projects that come up again and again, or is it quite broad in terms of what's going on out there?
Well, look, I think there is many public sector organisations are thinking digital now and developing digital services to enable, whether it's citizens across the UK, patients within healthcare, or residents and businesses in local, all focused on this new digital world. But I often think that's the easy space. Well, it's not easy, but that is relatively easy in the sense that I see this like an iceberg. The new digital services, the bit above the water that you see. But anyone who's worked in public sector organisations knows 80%, 90% of the country is still running on legacy tech. And so, it's maybe not what I'm seeing, but what I think I should be seeing. And that is actually trying to take more digital ways of working to tackling legacy IT and transforming the way that existing technology is managed to be more user-centered, and bringing some of the stuff that we're seeing being innovated in the digital space and really starting to tackle that 80, 90% beneath the water. I think that's where the real transformation is. And I think we've seen a few examples of organisations beginning that journey, or have been on that journey for a little while, but many more organisations are yet to take that step forward. And so this merging of digital and IT into there's so much that both sides can learn from each other, and bringing those together is the critical space at the moment. And I think until you start tackling that, the majority of what the public sector is running on right now, it's only gonna be superficial change. So maybe not what I'm seeing everywhere. I'm seeing more and more of it, but I think that's the place that's really transformative.
Brilliant. And what's good look like in this? Are there any examples of sort of innovative use of tech where it's helping that acceleration, it's helping to deliver better outcomes to citizens that you've seen and think, yeah, I like that. That's something that we should be doing, more widely across the public sector?
Yeah, I've got a couple of examples. So we've been working in and around the prisons technology transformation program with the Ministry of Justice, and in that space, it's a program that's largely hardware and IT about across the prisons across the UK. How can we actually transform the way technology is deployed in prisons? And actually, so for the first time, this is one of the first kind of IT technical projects that are actually adopting new digital ways of working, agile program delivery, and an outcomes focus on user needs. And actually, this is to my previous point. This is the place where real innovation comes, when we start bringing these worlds together and actually focused on how can we rehabilitate prisoners, get them back into society, and how can we use technology in prisons to foster learning. And I think that's a hugely beneficial thing for society, and that is coming from this merging of kind of IT and digital and transformation there. So and there are other organizations, public sector organizations. Ministry of Justice did merge technology and digital a while ago now, but we're starting to see a similar thing at Department for Education, and so there's lots of organizations that are starting to tackle this, and that's really inspiring to see some of the early successes there. So that's what I'm watching closely. But also, a slight humble brag here, we through COVID, one of the things I was lucky enough to work on with a team was building a virtual visiting service. So this is like a digital service that connected patients on wards who weren't able to see loved ones with loved ones over a video call. And there's a lot of software out there that was focused on enterprise software. You kind of have to fill out a huge load of forms to just get onto a call. What we did is just use a little bit of the NHS design system, use a little bit of a third-party video calling service. And all it enabled ward staff to do was effectively book in calls between loved ones and patients and manage that process. We built that over 48 hours and had it tested on wards the next week with doctors initially, and then with first patient calls within a week of building that. And that is an example of accelerated delivery where the solution, okay, we didn't go through a formal discovery and alpha process like GDS espouses, but actually the solution hypothesis we ran with was cheap enough to build and test in a live environment that we could throw it away if needs be, but build it if not. And so having a bit more confidence to try things like that, and it's been massively successful. We worked with London North West and Kettering General Hospitals to roll that out, and we're in the tens of thousands of calls now between patients and loved ones, and that's just we could just do something very quickly, release it, and such a big impact, right?
Yeah, I mean, that sense of achievement, like you said, of going back to the sort of the purpose-driven activity and feeling like you're making a difference at a time of crisis, to be able to stand that up so fast. There's a buzz for everybody involved, and then you can see it in action. You can see the impact it's living, which is brilliant.
So rewarding.
Yeah. I'm interested in, I guess, where the challenges are in this. I think what we hear is there's lots of good intent out there. There's a lot of ambition. Nobody ever sets out to deliver poorer outcomes for their citizens. Everyone wants to improve stuff,
absolutely.
But there are always things that can hold us back. Parking the idea of budget, because probably it is what it is. Everybody's kind of going to be under the same constraints in the coming years for obvious reasons. What are the challenges that you see in public sector organisations that are slowing them down, and maybe then how do you think they can overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, a common one that we're hearing more and more is frustrations from leadership that teams are stagnating or blocked by delivery, and actually what's really causing that? What is making teams feel ineffective? And I think this is often it's a miscommunication, a lack of communication between being able to set teams up to be successful in the first place. I mentioned this previously, that it's about getting out the way teams, getting them focused on outcomes, not focusing them on outputs. And a lot of the time I kind of get to understand the delivery process practices of an organization, and I can see that there's a lot of focus on measuring story points and output, and having the right processes in place between deploying, and that ends up meaning that releases are happening on a digital service like once a month or once every 3 months instead of ideally every day, right? And when red tape gets in the way, and then you've got leadership who are angry, almost angry at the teams not delivering, but it's the red tape and that structural stuff that's getting in the way, and the lack of trust there. Often I think people just need to go on a bit of maybe a team building exercise, or get some of the leadership members joining the agile teams. Or just getting involved in the work itself, or definitely as soon as we can hug it out. Absolutely. But also this is about skills and having the right people, the right skills in teams, and I do hear a lot about an inability ability to hire quick enough and build the right skills. I guess MadeTech's trying to help a little bit in that space where we can kind of plug a gap in teams. Like engineers can join teams and start effectively help establish a new type of culture, but then quickly step back as we hire permanent staff and support that. I think that's really that's a tough thing. If you're asking organizations who don't have the internal knowledge around this delivery, then you do need to start to look for some support and have the right skills. And often, it's not just a case of hiring people with specific skills anymore. It's a case of hiring learners who are willing to learn and adapt, because technology is changing at such a rapid pace. It's not about like hiring for a specific, by the time you've written out all of that criteria, got it through your HR process, and it's got the job ad out, the tech's changed, right? So in a lot of ways, it's about learning to think differently about the skills and building workforce. And so that's another challenge that I see.
It's really interesting. You mentioned that sort of, the red tape and the bureaucracy. We've seen lots of examples where, COVID forced and then allowed teams to move at greater pace. Some of those restrictions are eased because of the depth of the crisis and just the need to get the results quicker. Do you think that some of that cultural change, that appetite for risk, might stick around after COVID? I mean, it's possible that now the case has been proved that the world doesn't fall apart if you do things a bit quicker, if you make riskier decisions, you try things that don't work. Nobody dies in terms of internal politics and stuff. Do you think it might be a longer term cultural change that we see?
I'm optimistic. I think actually, this point about building confidence and letting go of some of the fear. I think we've all gone through some of those on a personal level, gone through those motions, as well as teams and organisations. And so I hope that's built up a bit of an internal strength in everyone individually, but also organisations too. I hope most have at least found some good to come out of all these hard times. I really do. And I also just I get the sense that people ain't going to take it. There'll be revolutions if we start going backwards from this point. Like, think about some of the work-life balance stuff that it can help create. And I've realized, yes, I need a social interaction. I do need a bit of that, but I probably only need it one day a week, to be fair. And so that's a new thing for me. I certainly would expect people to kind of not want to just travel backwards. So I'm optimistic, hopeful.
Good stuff. It's good to hear. So as we're counting down to the GovX Digital Conference, which is coming up pretty soon, and you're going to be taking part in the session on accelerating delivery, which is obviously something that's close to your heart, and you've got lots of experience there. So curious to find out from you, what are you looking forward to sharing with our audience and your fellow panelists, and then maybe also what are you looking to hear in exchange?
I think actually it's about generating kind of that confidence and driving that from kind of passion and purpose. I think, but like you mentioned, like, we're all hopefully in this to deliver better outcomes for citizens, to put our skills to great use. And so I'm really interested in the conversation about how we can find new purpose and change in terms of our confidence in the way that we can organize our teams and how we can approach delivery, and kind of taking an outcomes focused on that. But outcomes really is, for me, it bubbles all the way up to purpose. And I do talk about this a lot, both in how we've organized MadeTech as a business, but I think it's like we need shared purpose between suppliers and the public sector. We need teams to understand what their purpose, their raison d'etre, the outcomes that they're seeking, and not just expecting teams to be focused on outputs and just churning out code or design or whatever. We're all working towards outcomes here. We've all got a shared purpose, and it's about being able to talk about that, being able to build confidence in that. And I think that's something that COVID's given us more focus on, and I think it's about really harnessing that and taking that forward, and not not taking a step backwards. So I'm looking to kind of engage in those conversations and to hear how other people are kind of approaching this, and just to get pumped up and excited and taking us forward as we come out of these hard times we've been in.
Great stuff. Well, we can't wait to host you. It's going to be a great session and a great event over 2 weeks. So it's been a brilliant conversation. Great to hear your passion for and excitement for the public sector and how digital and technology can really transform outcomes, which is what it's all about. So, Luke, I just want to say thanks so much for joining me. It's been a brilliant conversation.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, really appreciate it. Thanks.
So thank you again to Luke for joining me for that conversation. Great to hear his passion for the public sector and how accelerating delivery is possible with the right approach, the right skills and the right culture. As I said at the beginning, there's a session dedicated to the idea of accelerating delivery happening at the GovX Digital event. Luke's joining a panel that also includes Anthony Collard from HMRC, Dan West from the Department of Health in Northern Ireland, and Daniel Wintercross from the Department of Health and Social Care. It's a session that's going to be packed with practical examples and insights from people that are making change happen, so one not to be missed. To join, all you have to do is register via the link in the show notes below and join us on the session at 3:30 p.m. on the 13th of May. That's all from me. We'll be back soon with another conversation with a public sector change maker. But until then, goodbye.